Welcome to the podcast about investing in startups, where existing investors can learn how to get the best deal possible. And those that have never before invested in startups can learn the keys to success from the venture experts. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
On this special investor story segment, the experts illustrate some of the most important lessons they've learned about startup investing and how that has changed their approach. Here's the segment called Lessons Learned.
Today, Jonathan Trieste and Brett Desmarais join us from Detroit, Michigan. Guys, what's one of the more important lessons you've learned through your experiences in startup investing?
Always be honest. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for Brett, but I think it's gross when people just lie and talk about things that are, when they pretend to know something that they don't specifically. I love, and I find it very refreshing when founders say that they don't know something and that they'll look into it. It makes me trust them 1,000 times more.
That's, ditto, 1,000%. Then also, I think in both in startups and venture capital, or really anything you're trying to accomplish that's hard, is you have to get very accustomed to riding the roller coaster. As a founder, you can go from really low to really high very quickly. And I think the same thing for VCs, where companies seem like they're tracking in the right direction, then they hit a bump and things don't look so good. And being able to kind of regulate and stay in the middle, not get too high, not get too low, I think is important to be able to operate effectively.
That's a good point. I mean, and I think I can relate to that too. I mean, early on, I'd have a lot of people saying very nice things about what we're building here at Ludlow, and then other people who were making suggestions that it's not going anywhere. And they both affected me a lot. I would feel very good when people would say nice things, and I would feel very upset when people would say negative things. And I think the truth is to, like Brett said, just have a healthy barometer, realize that most fringes, most sides, whether they're positive or negative, don't really have a very good idea of what you're doing anyway, and just stay the course.
On today's special segment, we have Leo Polovets of CISA Ventures. Leo, have you made an investment that didn't work out, which has caused you to adapt or improve your approach? If so, what did you learn, and how has it changed what you invest in?
So this is a little bit cliche, because I think other investors have said the same thing. And I'm not going to name names, but either I or my fund have made a few investments where we really loved the idea and thought the founder was pretty good, but not amazing. And generally those haven't done as well as the ones where we thought the founders are amazing and the idea was pretty good. And I think what I've learned, I've heard other people talk about this, but it didn't really sink in until I, kind of did this myself. But what I learned is that a lot of times great founders can navigate through figuring out a better business model or figuring out a better product. But I think if you start with a great product and a good but not great founder, whenever you run into stumbling blocks, that founder is less likely to get over them.
Do you think about the path to Series A and sort of that interim milestone to Series A for the startup, or are you thinking more long-term, big picture? This should be a $1 billion company that's IPOing in the next, 5 to 10 years.
I think we try to look at both, because I think what we're interested in is the big picture, which is, for our fund to work, we definitely want at least a few investments that get to that, IPO stage, $1 billion stage, whatever the magic number is. But that said, no matter how great the long-term vision, if there's not a good concrete plan from getting, from step 1 to step 2 or from seed to Series A, then it's not really going to matter. So I think we look both for a good long-term potential, but then also a good realistic path for the next, 15, 18 months that'll get the founder to a stage where they can raise more capital and take things to the next level.
You and I have talked a little bit about process and filtering, and you've helped me out with some input on that. But part of the analysis that I went through at one point with a lot of these early stage angel investments, most of them don't even get to a Series A. And so the first thing I did was I looked for all the reasons why companies weren't making it to Series A and talking to investors in town. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it was a people issue. There's definitely an array and there's a distribution of issues, but 9 times out of 10, the reason they're not getting to an A or a B is a people issue.
Do you mean that founders were leaving or something like that, or more like the investors didn't like the founders?
For a range of reasons. So either the team didn't have the domain expertise in the market to effectively understand it and the challenges they were going to face. They didn't have the network and the access to be able to get in with enterprise clients that they were planning to or promising during their pitch. They didn't have the hustle or the passion around the idea itself to see it through with the same vigor and the same time commitment that they had early on. Even in some cases, I've heard about founders with families that at the seed stage, they were totally comfortable and fine with taking a low salary, and then ultimately it didn't work out for personal reasons, and they had to close up shop and go back to a pay grade that they could comfortably be paid from a larger, more established player with benefits. And so just a variety of team and personal issues that maybe didn't have to do with the viability of the value proposition or the viability of the idea, but maybe the viability of the people driving the idea forward.
That's interesting. Yeah, one of the things I really like is I feel like over the last 3 to 5 years, there's been much more like transparency and much more available content on why startups fail. Like there are a lot of how-tos, but now there are also a lot more like how not-tos. And I think reading those is often very eye-opening and educational.
On today's special segment, we have David S. Rose. David, have you made an investment that didn't work out, which has caused you to adapt or improve your approach? If so, what did you learn, and how has it changed what you invest in?
Yeah, there are, sadder and wiser. Every lesson that didn't work out is a lesson you try and improve the next time and don't do it, right? Yep. So I had one investment where it was a pair of co-founders who would each put in a couple of $100,000, and they were best of breed and really amazing kind of guys. And 3 months after we invested, the technical co-founder, the CTO, who had brought the whole tech team with him and put $200,000 of his own money, said, "Oh, you know what? My stock in my previous company vested. I'm having a kid. I'm going to build a house, so I'm leaving." He said, "What?" And so, literally, he just walked out of the company, leaving his partner, who was the non-techie, completely hanging. The engineering staff effectively left without the leader there. They left.
Yikes.
And the company fell on hard times. And so, that's one of those intangibles. How do you figure out it's got to walk away, right? But ever since then, I've been very, very wary and looking for that commitment question, or, how long are you in for? So that's one thing. But the interesting one that led to a direct change had to do with convertible notes and the structure of deals. And I discussed this a little bit in my book, but essentially we had a company which was a very interesting company, and it started out, we did the first round on a price note, which was no problem. We converted it to an equity round at a fixed price, which was great. And then the company was growing rapidly. So we did another bridge note, a convertible note as a bridge to hopefully what will be a venture round. But then the company began to pick up steam and got really, really fast, got really, really big, and managed to get some venture debt in. So it didn't actually need another equity round. So now it got in venture debt, and it used that to get very, very big. And so here's a company that started out, we invested at $1 million or $2 million or something early on. It was now to the point where if it was going to do a round would clearly be in the tens of millions of dollars, which you would say that would be no problem, right? Okay, well, so it ended up doing a round because they realized that because of the convertible note converted into the next round, they get all the advantages of that round, so they had better convert it right up front. They converted the note into an equity round, and then right after that, the bottom fell out of the market. The company, almost crashed and burned. But eventually, it found an acquirer. and the acquirer came in at a more than the initial valuation, but much less than the sky high last one, right? So you'd say, okay, well, because of liquidation preferences, the last guys get their money out, and everybody else gets money out along the way. But no, that's not what actually happened. What we learned here was it turned out because the second, if you remember the sequencing of the notes here, the second note, the one that was outstanding, eventually converted, several years later, had invested at a very low cap, which was not a problem, converted into a price round at a high number. So they get the benefit of the valuation difference. That's fine, no problem. Sure. But the problem was they got the same stock as the priced big round, right? And so that meant they got the same liquidation preference as the priced big round.
Yes. I've read about you and Mark Suster had a conversation about this, I think.
It was about 20x, right, the cash they had put in. So the liquidation preference, so when at the end of the day, when all the dust settled on this round, there was zero correlation between when you invested and what valuation you invested in and how much you walked away with. Because the last guys got out the liquidation preference, they came out even, right? The guys in the first round, the price round, got the liquidation preference, and the guys in the middle who happened to just hit in that convertible note that got converted at the big number walked away with like a 5, 10, 20x number over there.
Better to be lucky than good, huh?
It was such an insane outcome that everybody looked around and said, "How the hell did this possibly happen?" and ever since, and because there was no bad faith on anybody's part, it was just the way the docs worked. And that was why ever since that deal, every one of our term sheets, our convertible note term sheets, and actually the convertible note term sheet that I have in the book Angel Investing, makes it very clear that you will convert not into the equity of the next round, but into the equity of the next round. It's similar in all respects, except for the liquidation preference, which is the price you actually paid. So,
right.
So that has changed the way we have forever done convertible notes since then to make it rational. And that's what we learned.
Talk about unintended consequences.
Yep.
That will wrap up this installment of Investor Stories. Head over to thefullratchet.net to leave a comment, sign up for the newsletter, or find resources discussed on any of the episodes. Until next time, remember to over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for listening.